Hi, everybody. Welcome to the HR Roundtable. We're so excited that you could join us today. Absolutely thrilled to have Rachel Platt here with us talking about becoming a strategic HR powerhouse, something I think that we all want to be, and I think so many of us already are and just don't realize it yet. So, Rachel, let me turn it over to you.
Good morning, wherever you are calling in from. I'm glad to see that we have much of the US covered and a great crowd. Let me be very honest. I would love to see more of you on camera. I get the energy from seeing people react, from seeing your eyebrows go up and down if I'm not making any sense. Um, or to you giving a thumbs up if I'm actually on track on something. So if you can, I understand that not everyone can, but if you can be on camera, I would really appreciate it. So good morning again. I am Rachel Platt, and I am thrilled to be with you today. Um, I love this picture to get started in for this session because to me, this picture represents the combination of your head and your heart. And I think that that is what strategic HR is all about. And just for those of you keeping track, this picture is from Upsplash. You too could download it for free. Just want to give a shout out to them. Um, this is going to be an interactive learning session. We're here to learn both from each other and with each other. And so I really encourage you to speak up, ask questions, talk to each other, talk to me, give examples of how this shows up in your world, in your life, because we are all here to support each other. We've got a big agenda, so I am going to keep running because if you thought you were coming here to listen to a monologue, you are wrong. You actually have some work to do in this session. But as we get started, because I already saw somebody who said that they are going to need to leave early, a lot of what we're going to be talking about is in this sounds like guide that I created. I used to only offer this at the very end of giving this presentation, and I have now been told multiple times, please, um, give it to us at the beginning. It's not necessarily you don't need to read it now, you don't need to be looking at it now. It's just so that you've got it now. Would be terrific for all of us. A little bit about me. Can I just ask a question? What slide can you all see right now?
It just moved to the Let's Soar Together slide.
Oh, well, okay. Then you couldn't see when as I was telling you, the you can quickly download these things rather than giving it to you at the end. Let's connect on LinkedIn. Let's do all of that. I will show it to you at the end again. I'll give you one more second. And while I do that, um, just a little bit about me, what brings me here. I am one of you. I worked in corporate HR for more than 20 years. I worked in large organizations. You would know the names of many of them. I worked in a professional services firm as well. And in 2018, I decided that I was going to go out on my own and started Platinum Consulting. We now work with purpose-driven organizations, for-profits and not-for-profits, maximizing their people strategy. We build the clarity, the systems, and the confidence to solve your complex challenges, to navigate change, and to help achieve your important business goals, and to recognize that the only way to achieve those most important business goals is with the human beings that you actually work with. We can talk all day long about how AI is going to change the workplace, and it is, but it still comes down to the human beings that you work with. So I work with clients in three different ways. I work with leaders, HR leaders, and the C-suite to create and execute on broad people strategy. We find, we fix, and we implement the plans around culture and development, the ones that actually work. We do a lot of work in the change space, whether during a merger, during times of growth, times of uncertainty, frankly, everything in between. There's just a lot of disruption that is happening right now. And so we work together on how to navigate the change journey so that both the business and the humans that work there actually can thrive. And finally, I work with some clients in a fractional chief people officer role, often working with other HR leaders who just don't have the capacity to do everything that is on their plate right now. And I'm sure that some of you are feeling like, oh my goodness, it's just coming at me from all sides. And so I'm with you. I am completely with you. Today we do have a big agenda. So today we are going to kick off with an exercise, a self-assessment um, of how you are thinking about and how you are showing up as a strategic leader. We're going to talk a little bit about what people strategy really means, and what some of the latest research says that CEOs are looking for, which continues to change. And we're going to talk about some practical examples, and we're going to share some great ideas. So, with that, we are going to kick off right now. In the chat, you all should be able to see in the chat. I just added a document. It is a self-assessment. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to finish. Here is what I'm going to ask. This is not pretty. It's not a pretty document, but it is a working Excel document. So you don't need to do any math today. This strategic HR mirror is designed to help you figure out where you currently land on the strategic spectrum. So what I'd like you to do is to download this document and save as, um, and then go through it. Spend a couple of minutes rating how frequently you demonstrate the behaviors that are listed on there. There are no right or wrong answers. This is just for insight into your own growth. Can you all see it in the chat? Do we thumbs up
Yes.
somebody? Anybody? Thank you, PJ. Appreciate that.
You may want to drop it in the chat one more time just for those that just came in.
Okay, I will do that. So for those of you who just came in, we have a self-assessment that is popping up in the chat. I was trying to um, pin it to the top, and it is not letting me do that. PJ, you may be able to do that, to pin it to the top so that people have it. And you can feel free to share this with other members of your team that are not here today. It's just a quick 15 question survey to see where you are on the strategic spectrum. Yeah, terrific. Tayasha, thank you. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Okay. So, like I said, there are no right or wrong answers to this. This is just for you to think about where you are, um, and how maybe today's session will help you to get a step further. So I don't know how many of y'all know each other, but when I'm in a big group of professionals that I feel are my people, I like to take a little time to get to know them. So PJ is going to kindly stick us into 7-minute breakout sessions. Here's my questions for you. A, introduce yourself to some of the other amazing and talented HR leaders that are on this call. And then while you're there, how do you define strategic HR? What questions on the reflection tool surprised you? Are you willing to share a particular area of strength and maybe where your growth edge is? For those of you who are not familiar, growth edge is a phrase, um, came from a book, Changing on the Job, uh, by Jennifer Garvey Berger. I know that that's her name. I can't remember the name of the book. But it's just, it's a great tool and it's a great book. So if you would put everybody, PJ, into the breakout groups, I would really appreciate it. I'm going to stick the questions in the chat and you can join them. You've got about 8 minutes. Get to know each other and share what your experience is. Thanks.
Everybody should be back.
Welcome back, everyone. Oh, and it's nice to see more people on camera, I have to be honest. I hope you'll stay on camera with us. It just makes it a little bit more fun, feel a little bit more inclusive. So, is anyone willing to share? Is anyone willing to volunteer their definition of what strategic HR is?
We had some great conversation about it. I'll add mine, but I think we had some other really amazing additions from our group. Really, for me, it's about how do we operate kind of in lockstep with the business in a really quick nutshell. So, how do we understand their priorities and build them into ours so that when we're talking to them, we're explaining it in a way that makes sense to them and speaks their language while still doing what we need to do for the people side of the house. So.
Okay, well, good. That's it. That's the end of the presentation. Good to see you all today. Thanks so much. So glad you all were here. Christy, that was outstanding. Can anybody add to it? No pressure. I will, and by the way, I cannot see all of you. So if someone is raising their hand, I can't see it, but feel free to come off at any time. Um, Here's my favorite definition. Very much aligned with what Christy said. And for those of you who were not on earlier, it is very cool that their group was a Christy, a Christine, and a Kristen. Just happened. Anyway, people or HR strategy there's so many definitions that are out there. But what this it is exactly as she said, it is about supporting your employees while aligning with the organization's purpose, mission, and business strategy. People strategy is an investment in your organization's future. Frankly, it's also an investment in your future. Just recently, I don't know if any of you saw it, Korn Ferry came out with a report about the expanding expectations for strategic HR leaders and their ability to truly optimize the organization's workforce in support of the business language. in support of the business and using the business's language truly is what people are looking for. We often, as HR leaders, are thinking about connecting and influence. It's also about impact, and it is about how we offer our insights to drive the business forward. So it's a puzzle. It really and truly is. There are several pieces, though, that come together in this puzzle. So, according to McKinsey, organizations with that strong internal alignment between the business objectives, the staff goals, those are the organizations that retain their staff more than 2 times longer and achieve higher engagement scores and higher profitability. Guess what? Those are things that we're all responsible for. And those signs of misalignment, like high turnover, unclear roles, leadership bottlenecks, inconsistent accountability, those are real challenges that we are facing and dealing with every day. So as we think about repositioning what we are doing, as we think about how we need to be even more data informed, have more internal and external benchmarks, and how we're creating a long-term impact, those are really the focuses that we need to have. In my last corporate role, I kept summing this up as every one of our actions, I would say to my team, does this allow us to ramp up our employees faster? Does it lower our regrettable turnover? Or does it create a smoother customer/employee experience? If a people initiative doesn't hit one of those, it may still be necessary, but it's not strategic. And so, as we're all saying to ourselves, oh, I want to be strategic, I want to be strategic, this is really where we need to focus ourselves on ensuring that it aligns with what the business is looking for. So, one of the other really big, my slides are not moving forward. There we go. One of the big takeaways, that a client, a CEO at his organization said to me, and it just really made me reflect. My HR leader is fluent in compliance, but they aren't fluent in commerce. They're not aware, they don't understand enough about our business or how we make money. And that really struck me. It really, I mean, it felt a little bit like a stab in the heart because we care so much. But I really felt like, that makes sense to me. It also is that HR thinks that they're really good at storytelling with data. But the execs, they disagree. There was research from the most recent I could find was from 2023 from Gallup. Only 26% of the C-suite feels confident that their most senior HR leader, regardless of their title, is competent in their data storytelling abilities. They want to see us show up. They want us to be curious. They want us to be prepared. They want us to have our data-backed information, especially now, especially when I'm going to assume that you all across the country are experiencing a lot of what we are experiencing. There is increased uncertainty. There is increased hesitancy to make decisions right now. People are questioning what's happening with the economy. They're questioning what is happening with the administration. They are questioning how tariffs are going to impact them. They're questioning how AI is going to impact them. And so we need to be thinking about what our business leaders need from us. One of the things, though, that I've learned, and I'm sure many of you have as well, is we can read all the articles that are out there in the world about what the coming trends are. By the way, there's a really good one that just came out from Gartner about like the 2026 strategic plans. I think it actually came out. I got it today. But we can read what's happening out there. But really, my best advice is that you ask your executive team, what does strategic look like to you? And this is where I've also had another few kicks in the gut, keeping in mind that sometimes it's really hard to change what someone's perception of you is. And I wish that it was different because I believe that as HR leaders, we want to be strategic business partners to the rest of the business, but it's not always possible. Sometimes our resources are too limited. Sometimes, often it means we have to focus on today's issues with no time to actually focus on the bigger picture. And that is difficult because it's difficult to improve and advance yourself in those situations. But you can start asking questions like, what issue most concerns you before the end of the calendar year? What's top of mind for you for the next 3 years? If you had a time machine, what do you wish that the organization had done differently? If you could wave a magic wand, what would you want to change immediately? And just obviously, you're not going to ask them in succession like that, but ask those every once in a while when you get your leaders in a good mood. Um, get them thinking strategically, get them thinking about you in a more strategic way. Don't wait until you're at your, quarterly check-in or a review. If you've got 5 minutes before a meeting and people are just sitting around waiting, for it to start, sometimes I ask one of those questions almost like as an icebreaker, and then I can follow it up. It's actually much better than talking about the weather. It gets people thinking. So what they say is strategic is how you want to be thinking about where you're going and where you're heading moving forward. Before I go further, does anybody want to weigh in here, give us an example of potentially where they've had conversations like this with one of their execs and how it went?
So I will share my embarrassing one from last year. It's not, I mean, not truly embarrassing. It just made me pause. I meet with my leaders regularly, and I had my year end. I talk about what my strategic goals for myself are for the coming year. And one of my senior VPs, I was talking to him and I said, listen, my goal, I know your director level really well. I want to really deepen my relationship with your VPs on your team. And he stopped and he said, well, are you sure you know all my directors as well as you think you did? And I was like, oh, well, and he is one of those people who has a great poker face and asks thought-provoking questions constantly. But we were new in our relationship, and it made me pause and go, Well, I think I do. And then go through that mental checklist on our call. But it was a good thought process to make sure that I am making those connections and how can I make sure that I'm more engaged and more strategic in those conversations. So it was an interesting and embarrassing for me moment.
It is great and it's not embarrassing. It's actually eye-opening and really thoughtful. Anyone else? Okay. So, what does this actually look like? Um, if our leaders are saying we need to lead from the front, um, that's a Deloitte quote, by the way. Um, we need to lead from the front on workforce transformation. All of these things that are happening right now, they need us there. Okay, terrific, great, appreciate that. How do we actually, though, speak their language? How do we change to A, help them to hear our language, and B, to speak in a way that they can better hear it? There's a few phrases that HR folks, at least I used to use all the time. And I had a mentor who took me aside and said, speak their language, speak their language. And so support became leverage. Not how can we support this, but how can we better leverage HR's participation in this? When we were talking about retention, not always, but I started thinking about it in terms of risk mitigation. How can we minimize the risk of high turnover? How can we be more proactive in minimizing the risk? Succession, continuity, hiring plan, our revenue strategy, all of those different things. And there's a bunch of questions. Like, how are we measuring ROI on our talent investments? What roles, does anybody have any idea what roles in this organization actually generate the most value? Do we have a pipeline for those people? How do we build a pipeline for those people? Those are the kinds of questions that my mentor, and as I'm mentoring people, it's not to sound like a walking buzzword, but it is to start changing people's perception of you. And that's really critical to building your case for how maybe you're going, see how much more I could do if I had the leverage, if I had the workforce that could support our day to day and our critical compliance needs, and I could be more focused on our strategic needs. Think about the impact that that would have on the business. I also spend a lot of time thinking about the metrics within my own department. So, and I'll be very curious. I'm going to tell you now the question I'm going to ask you at the end is what other ones can you share with us? Put them in the chat, speak up, whatever the case may be. But different metrics, thinking about the key things that we do that are kind of the bread and butter within people and culture, but thinking about them differently. So, my two favorites actually are the new hire failure rate. So, what does that tell us about our onboarding program? What does that tell us about integration? What does our turnover tell us, particularly our turnover of those people who were promoted within the last year? How do we look at voluntary versus involuntary? turnover differently? What does that mean that we need to change in how we are readying these folks for promotion? Um, I really also love thinking about how I don't know how many of you are actively hiring right now. And I would love to know if any of you are active, like super seeing a big growth phase right now, because we're not seeing that in the DC market at the moment. But the number of applicants per open position is another really interesting stat to delve into because it says a lot about how you are viewed externally as an employer of choice. It says a lot about the information about the market. And that's data that you can share with your leaders. Yes, they still want the jobs to get filled if you have them, but if you're trying to shift and become that strategic powerhouse, those are some of the ways that you do it. Does anybody else have any other stats you can share with us or metrics that you're using that you feel like have an impact?
One of the ones we track that I really like is looking at our voluntary turnover for our overall voluntary turnover and then for our high performing employees.
Oh, good one.
Hmm.
It's a great one.
Rachel, would you tell me the difference between what you mean by internal versus external hire rate? You mean promoting from within for a role and then,
Exactly.
okay,
Exactly, Monica.
okay.
What does it say if you're internally hiring or you can't internally promote? What does that say about your learning and development? Are you investing enough? Not enough? Are you investing in the right things? Because so often we say that people, they can do the job, but they're not ready for the next job. How are you investing in your managers and your leaders is what it's all about.
Yeah, and Rachel, if I may add, sometimes when folks hit a brick wall with their career, there's also some salary compression happening. So, so you tend to pay people more that are coming into the organization rather than really focus on the performers that you have on staff.
Yes, that's a great point, Jerry.
Rachel, we also, in addition to all of these, we look at our um, turnover rate for, our more entry level, mid-level performers versus, some of our more senior, director or above levels. So we look at that as well.
Another really good one. Because this data, I mean, getting back to the storytelling and the stats that they say that we think we're good at storytelling and our execs don't think we're so good at it. Um, it really and truly, this is the kind of thing that can have an impact, can help you to build the case for your team, can help you to build the case to invest in future things. We've identified the problem. Now, here's what the solution can be.
And Rachel, another thing that's really worked for many of my clients, uh, I think the reliance on exit interview data is now quite questionable. I mean, I get more value from doing this, what I call stay interview.
Stay interviews.
It's
Yes.
really, it's like it's more proactive. We can diagnose the issues immediately. The problem with exit interviews is that the folks are sometimes reluctant to be honest. They don't care. And I'm not saying we don't care, but it's like they're already leaving, so the damage has been done. So I just find better value and more impact and more meaningful work in conducting those day interviews. I get more insights from the staff almost directly.
Are you looking at my notes? Because that's actually the very next thing that I was going to say in my notes, Jerry. I mean, stay interviews, which are different from employee surveys or pulse surveys, are so important. Um, they're so important. So thank you for saving us 2 minutes of time
Yeah.
because you gave it to us.
But I have templates if you guys want, tried and tested stuff that work, I could share it with the group. So
That would be fabulous if you could upload something to the chat. I'm sure that everybody would really appreciate that, Jerry. That would be terrific.
Or Jerry, if you can, if you want to just, I'll pop my email in there. I can send it out with the summary. That would be
Oh,
great. Thank you
okay,
so much.
it'll be good because I might have to take out some logos and stuff that I do.
yes,
Absolutely.
amazing. I love teamwork. Um,
Can
um,
I add something? I guess this
please.
is more for exit interviews. One of the things that we added to our exit interviews was asking, were people leaving for like a similar role or a promoted role? Because what we wanted to see is we were a smaller organization. Um, because if someone is leaving for a promotion, then great, because we're smaller and we know that sometimes there's just nowhere for you to go and people feel stagnant. But if you're leaving for a similar role, right, at kind of the same level you already are, then is that because you didn't get along with your supervisor, or was that because of, work-life balance? Was that because of workload, right? And then we can try to drive down. For us, it seems like our employees are more honest when they're about to leave. They give a lots of feedback on their exit interviews. They're like, why didn't you say any of this, while you were still here? So we really do get good feedback from our exit interview process. And I think it was because we asked like some very certain questions to try to drill down really good responses. So I think your exit interview, you got to kind of think of what you really want out of the exit interview and build those questions around it to help you really get some good information. So that's been helpful for us over the last few years when we started, asking some very, exact questions that we wanted to get answers to. So I'll just
Thank
add
you,
that.
Karina. That's very helpful.
I also wanted to add that with our industry and our company right now, we had a lot of senior leaders on our leadership team. Unfortunately, either left on their own or was let go. And that really took a turn on our, I guess, the ability for our leadership to actually run the company. And there was a lot of questions and concerns. And one thing that was not in place that I have now asked that we start doing was succession planning, and understand, like we have our metrics as far as those that may be retiring at the federal age and everything. And most of them actually don't retire at that age, from what I'm seeing with our workforce. But um, when we pulled that metrics, it actually had a higher number than I thought it would. So I quickly, advise our COO and now my new manager that we need to implement strategic succession planning in the event that these leaders do decide to leave, whether that is at the retirement age or because of X, Y, and Z. Unfortunately, we had a lot of new structure happening within our company. So with that comes a lot of change, and a lot of people aren't happy with the change. So we're trying to figure out what is our next plan to retain and keep the employees that we have, while also still hire for the positions that we have open and also retain that going forward. So, not sure if that was on the plate, but that's something that we were also looking forward to in quarter 1 of next year.
Really important. And I see that there are two Alexa Velasco's in this meeting. I'm not sure if that's really true. So I'm just going to say thank you, Alexa, but I'm not sure which of you is the real one.
Yeah, I forwarded her the email. I don't know why it didn't work the other way, but she's part of my team. Sorry.
Okay, well, hi to both of you.
That's Jennifer.
Happy to have both of you here.
Thank
That's
you.
very funny. Um, that yes, succession planning is a strategic activity, and getting them involved early, proactively, and thinking about how are we going to ready these folks is a really critical component where you can add significant value. The other thing I want to be real about is that I don't know about you all, but it takes a lot for me to spend time on myself, my own development, my own reading, my own understanding. I used to spend so much time supporting, that word that should never be used again. I used to spend so much time actually supporting that I was not spending time focusing on how to grow my career and being very clear about what I did and didn't want in my career, because maybe you're going to learn the hard way, that what I thought I ultimately aspired to was not what I really actually wanted to be doing. And so taking some time to think about what is it that you really do want, and how do you make the time? Because you're never going to just find the time. You must make the time to listen to others, to find the podcast that means something to you, to read the articles, to find different ways of thinking. I mean, you're investing in yourself by being here, so kudos to all of you for that, but making it a regular part of your own um, career and your own strategic plan. And also keeping in mind, like I said earlier, that we need a little bit of a reality check that sometimes in our current organizations, we're not going to change people's minds, about who they think we are or what our capabilities are. And it is a tough market out there right now, but being open to alternatives is always an option that you should keep for yourself. Because when you're dealing with an outdated model, when you're dealing with resistance to change, when you're dealing with technology that is not on the cutting edge, and when you're dealing with uncertainty and cost pressures and folks who just want to keep the trains running because there is so much disruption in in the economy right now, sometimes you just got to stand tall, and find ways. So I think that more that we can support each other, ask good questions. Thank you, Jerry, for offering to share. Thank you, Christy, for coming off of mute so many times. I really, really appreciate all of you focusing on how to become more strategic. So in the chat, I am going to ask you, is there one area in your business? What's the strategic area that you can focus on in the next 30 days? Because it's not a document. It's how we lead and how we learn every day. So share one thing that you can do going forward. Being more transparent. I love that, Monica. Incorporating data. One of my favorites is to forward articles from time to time. And there's some cool things you can do with AI. There are some prompts that you can say, like, hey, give me the 20% of this long HBR article or whatever. And give me the nuggets out of it. Give me, the 80-20 rule. And I'll forward some really good articles to clients. I used to do this with the executive team, and I would say, hey, here are my big takeaways. Wonder if you catch anything different in there. And I would just give a bullet point or two. It's just to make them think a little bit more. Hey, I actually know what I'm talking about. I'm on top of things. um, Gave me a little bit of confidence, but also like that data makes a difference. Um, and finding ways so sometimes somebody sent me a chat just to me. I'm sure they meant it to be for everyone. But the question says, what sources do you use? Um, I do real, I mean, I used a bunch of them today. I like Gartner. I like Gallup. I like Deloitte. I like McKinsey. Um, if you're in the GovCon space, I like Bridgeview and ICF. I like in the not for profit space. Oh, wait, Bridgeview is actually not for profit. Um, in in the not-for-profit space, I like nonprofit HR. They've got some really good data that is out there. And I just try to like stick one or two, not to be fake. I try to do it really authentically. But I try to get one or two things that's relevant in my head and stick it there that's relevant to things that are going on in my business so that I can drop it into conversation and create those opportunities. And when I'm coaching and working with other HR leaders, I'm always trying to say to them, like, how can you reference external benchmarks to help you? Um, yeah. So you guys have some amazing um, things that you can do, understanding the data, using it to make informed decisions. A lot of people saying finding more time for development, for their own personal development, um, spending time with their leaders, asking questions about what it means to them to be leaders, to be strategic. That's how you become a people strategist. The foundation of what you already know will remain and always be at the core, but taking it up a notch can really have such a tremendous impact on the business, but more importantly, on you, your career, your contributions. And so make the investment in yourself.
Rachel, thank you so much for such an amazing program to give us so many different tools and such great conversation about what we can do to continue investing in ourselves, which is probably one of the most important things. We talk about it a lot at the round table, and that there is a safe space to do that. And we are only going to be that much better if, for all of those that we are trying to help, if we are also taking care of ourselves. That whole, put your oxygen mask on first,
Yes.
beforehand. But thank you again. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We certainly appreciate it and hope that everybody has a great rest of their day. Thanks so much, everybody.